Hey guys, welcome. This is episode number 50 of the TRE live show. One of the issues that we're facing right now is that the volume is a little bit lower than I want it to be. We are currently trying to fix it, but if it is really low for you, let us know in the chat, and we're coming up with an alternate solution.
Some alternate mics because
I'm also trying to do what I can here on the technical software side. Advanced audio properties.
How are we doing over here? Yes. Isn't it fun? You'd think 50 episodes in we would have this figured out, but there's
always something
new to work on.
So
which is always, you know,
now I got it at
always
like
a thing.
200% volume.
Let's see how this is.
All right, how about now? Now it's a little bit better.
Is it a little bit better now?
Can you see on
I
that
feel
side?
like that's up a little bit better right there.
Okay, well, you guys, it is really quiet. Okay, cool. So if it's better now, let me know, because I think it is better. In which case we can just...
It is really low. Okay, I can hear you in
hold
Brooklyn.
on. Let me see. I'm jacking it up on this side.
How's this? Yeah, it's still pretty... that's a little bit better. Is that better, guys? A little bit?
Okay, now it should be fine.
Okay.
Now we're talking about normal levels here.
Normal levels?
And we'll project. How's that?
We will better. Better. Good.
Okay, cool. Not so... It sounds fuzzy. It shouldn't sound fuzzy. We have like top of the line audio equipment and video equipment here. This is like...
Do you want to swap this? Swap this out?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, guys, we're gonna go silent for a second. We're gonna go
It's not gonna go sound. It'll just go
we're going
weird.
to full mime.
Full mime. Hold on.
Full mime mode.
All right. You guys get to be part of the intimate experience of how the show's run as well as being participants.
I'm taking this guy and I'm putting this up here. They get sound right now. The sound should be a lot louder because it's just a regular camera mic.
All right.
Then I'm gonna plug this into here. There we go.
All right, now. Okay, now we're gonna be. Now it's gonna be too much. Hold on. Now I gotta.
Now we gotta back it off.
There you go. Okay, now we're...
Cool. So now I will just pin this here. A little shoulder pin.
All right.
Is this better?
Steven.
Is that? I feel like that's a little in the orange. We should back that off.
Okay. Well, you know, it's always something here.
And then I will back off the mic here down to regular levels. There we go.
Okay. And now we are comfortably in the yellow.
We are cooking with gas.
All right. Well... That was exciting. We are back for another episode of the TRE Live Show. Today we're talking about the best types of strength training for runners.
All different types, guys. We are not just going to be focusing on one specific movement or modality, but we are going to cover it all. Like I want to get into Pilates. I want to get into yoga.
Pilates and yoga.
The dirty word CrossFit. I want to talk about that a little bit. Other barbell stuff, weights, not weights. Doing dynamic stuff, kettlebell swings. We're gonna get in.
Are we gonna delve into mobility as well as strength?
Heck yeah, we're gonna get into mobility because that's a huge part of that whole thing.
I want to give a shout out to the Bodyweight Warrior.
Oh yeah.
He is a YouTube channel, pretty big actually. He's got like 100,000 people on there, and he's got out of the UK. I just was emailing back and forth with him, but I've been looking at his stuff because he basically takes, you know, he's a YouTuber at heart and has taken a lot of other people's different modalities, whether it's Kelly Starrett, who we know and done mobility there, or Emmett Lewis. He does a lot of things from like ballistics and like static stretching, and then, you know, weighted stretching and PNF stuff. And he's kind of put it together and has shown his own progress, which I will say is very impressive for a very tall man.
Mashed it.
He is very, he's come a long way. You can do like the pancake. Anyhow, so I've been incorporating some of his stuff and routines into my running just as a way to change things up and focus on mobility. And it's been great so far.
You actually just mentioned that you spent, and guys, I think a cool theme of this show that Craig and I have both explored a lot of different aspects of this. And I would almost say like we've kind of hit the extremes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I've gone to the point where I was, you know, the skinniest runner for my height. I was like just over 150 pounds at 6'1",
soaking wet,
to upwards of like 175, and being able to...
Are we talking about our weights now?
well, just the contrast, and the contrast for me of like basically being able to barely deadlift 100 pounds to being able to deadlift 330, you know? So like in competing at those different ranges and just sort of feeling how my body felt, you know, somewhere right now, probably somewhere happy in the middle.
And I actually, you know, like we have different body types. And one thing that's interesting for me is as soon as I got into CrossFit, I started putting on muscle. And, you know, my whole running career, I was focused on mileage and putting in lots of miles. And I actually felt a lot healthier once I started lifting weights.
Yeah.
Then I got to the point where I was lifting 300, 400 pounds off the ground and like to the point where I don't really need to lift that much.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was
it wasn't
flirting with
necessarily
injury.
helping your running anymore.
No,
or
and in
anything,
fact, like the extra bulk when we were doing our long race last year, our 50K, I definitely felt like the extra weight, even though it was muscle, was not helping me, you know, trudge up the hills.
It's totally happened. So we've got some great jumping off points for this conversation. Of course, we want to hear directly from you. This week's giveaway is thematically going to be our running strength program.
Awesome.
We have a 2-time-a-week program that goes for 8 weeks long, and it is a blend of some barbells, some kettlebells, some dumbbells, some box jumps, things you'd see at a regular gym, but it can also work at a home gym too. And it works well with all programs. So we're going to give away 2 running strength programs to someone next week. And this is also really nicely timed because for those of you guys in the training club, you know we like our live challenges. And we've never done...
Tell us about the live challenges, Nate.
We've never done... Well, thank you, Craig. Maybe I will. We've never done a running strength challenge.
Show them what they've won.
We've never done a live running strength challenge before.
True.
So this was something that we didn't even think of. Our members asked for it.
Yep.
Lee is taking the charge. It's kicking off next week, and you could do it live with us. How cool is that?
I love it. Maybe I'll do it myself.
Maybe you will.
Yeah.
Maybe he will.
Some people are going to be
not,
drinking wine
I'm
in
going to
Italy.
be in Italy. I'm going to be doing the Italy Bike Wine Challenge, which is, you know, ride bikes and drink wine every day.
Which means you get to see my lovely face for 2 weeks.
You do.
We're going to be randomly distracted all over the place. We're going to get into Craig's crazy kitchen. We're going to interview some people. It's going to be crazy.
It is going to be crazy. And speaking of crazy, we have our Healthy Habits Nutrition Challenge coming up a few weeks later, and we're going to bring Elizabeth on to answer your questions and dig a little bit more into the nutrition side.
And all of these things are free if you are in
the training club.
There we go.
If you are a training club member, you can do all of this
Which
stuff.
a bunch of you guys already are. I don't have to tell you this.
I
It's
know.
like preaching to the choir. But for those of you guys who are not, and you're wondering how all these people are on here every week and they know each other and so on and so forth, they've been following our programs, and the programs are all in the training club.
It is, very, very much. So check that Gleam link down below if you want to enter into that giveaway to be one of 2 lucky people to get that running strength program. And if you want to learn more about it, we just threw a link in there so you can dive in.
In the training club, you can easily just go to our website, therunexperience.com. You'll find it under training.
Totally.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's give it. I see a lot of.
We see a lot of faces in the world.
Faces that I know or names that I know.
Totally.
The
Elliot,
faces are really small on our
Elliot
screen.
was the first one to chime in. Elliot Sands, good evening. Alistair says hello from Cambridge. Joy, what's up, Joy?
Pedro, how you doing? Shanna, Brent, Lee. Good to see you, Lee.
Always good.
Lee is part of our team here at TRE, so she's
Rissa,
in the thick of it.
Rissa Sunshine, hello from Las Vegas. Hot Las Vegas. Renee, hello from sunny day in Wisconsin. Alexis Rivera, Jeffrey Gertz, Alistair Sands, all of you guys in here. Do we got any more new names? If you're new, chiming in. If you've chimed in a million times, never said hello.
I look at all your
hello.
comments, those messages. Oh, it's loud now. Too loud. A lot louder.
Right?
Okay. Well, hopefully we have our sound fidelity should be just crisp and clear now. Get the deep bass notes.
Yeah, there we go. Rissa says definitely love me some CrossFit.
Yeah,
we'll get into it.
Okay.
I want to hear it all, guys. Unfiltered, your opinions, your worries, your concerns. We'll go into it.
Isla says I take a spin class. Huh?
Yeah, I feel like you're just about to say something.
Oh,
and then you
quieted.
You quieted.
My insides are quiet.
Showing restraint. It only took 50 episodes.
You know?
Mixwell Event says hello, everyone. Alejandro from Hillsboro, Oregon says hello. And Zach from Algeria. What's up, Zach? Sam. What's up, Sam? Long time, bros. Today's birthday. Just send it.
Sam, all right.
We got to meet... When did we meet Sam? We met him last year sometime, I think.
Is that right?
I feel like we did somewhere.
You're talking about at the, was it the New York?
It might have been New York or Boston.
New York
I can't remember what it was, but it was one of those things.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, one of our favorite things about strength training, in order to figure out what type of strength training we do, because guys, we get that question all the time. I do yoga, I do Pilates, I do this, and the other side, you know, of that question, or the continuation of it is, you know, I do this, ... am I doing the right thing? Right? Is this good for my body? And a lot of times when you're looking for guidance for strength, you might see something on your run program that says, run today, cross-train tomorrow. So I wanted to ask you, is strength and cross-training the same thing, or are they different things? And if they are different, how would we define?
First of all, my position here at TRE is not as lead coach, so I would throw the question back at you. But my own opinion on this is cross-training is not the same thing. To me, like, cross-training is moving out of the modality of doing this single motion movement, which is running. You might do you know, a biking, yoga class, swim class. You could do, like, I would consider sometimes, like, some of the body weights, or even yoga can be a strength training thing. There are versions of strength training that I might consider to be in cross training, but for me, I want my strength training to be a regular defined part of my running curriculum, and it serves a very specific purpose towards my running. It's not something I just do to kick back and try something different, which is kind of how I see cross training.
Yeah, you know, when I was filming with Dathan Ritzenhein, and our first video dropped on Monday on Faster 5K, check that out. He is a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's been to 3 Olympics, and he has gotten over 20 stress fractures, so he knows a little something about getting injured and how to come back.
So his career, he's my age, and so his career is now 20 years.
Yeah.
So he's averaging 1 stress fracture per year.
It's incredible.
Which you can imagine, he's been doing 80 to 100 miles plus since we were in high school. And I remember tracking his workouts back when he was a year younger than me. That's a lot of mileage. And so, you know, he is putting himself at the breaking point.
A lot.
Quite literally. I've been very punny lately. I even punted in the comments. All right. So I don't know. Too much time about acapella group is really.
I know.
3 hours last night, and so Dathan has been putting lots and lots of mileage. And you know, you might think, oh, he's doing something wrong. Maybe there's a way to avoid some of the stress fractures, but you know, a lot of it is when you're a professional athlete, you are towing the line of injury, because that is the only feedback loop that is telling you, hey, I can't go any farther. Yeah. And so you try to hold everything together, but as soon as you hold it together, you push even farther. Yeah. And so.
And he's definitely been knocked down, but I've been what's incredible about Dathan, and this will tie in with the cross-training thing, is that he's learned a lot about this experience, and his habits have really improved from his early days of running, which was just to kind of be a knucklehead and run a lot, kind of listen to coaches, you know, but then to later on now where he is militant in the way that, you know, Meb is, in terms of about his mobility and his strength. And he used to say that, you know, after a track workout, he couldn't even talk to Meb for the next 20, 25 minutes, because he would immediately go into like his cool down stretches and exercises and other things. Yep. Anyway, I bring this up because Dathan, through trial and error, has very specific definitions of what these things are. And for him, cross-training is something that has a big aerobic element to it. Right. That is in a way of, without pounding the body, getting additional miles in. So that could be the elliptigo, that could be the bike, that could be swimming or water running or something like that. Yeah. And then strength training serves its own purpose. So you could almost say like strength might exist underneath cross training, but for us, I think it's like here and here. Yep. And we want this to be a separate thing. Cross train or not cross train, the strength piece has to happen. You know, the strength training piece, I feel like, is, you know, something that's commonly misunderstood. It's the reason that we have it as one of our core in the run experience. We think about mobility. We think about mobility is a lot of it is injury prevention and maintenance of your body, and then strength training is basically building your body so it can take the beating, right? And it's also performing this functional movement to see where you're deficient, and then technique, which is kind of the taking both those things and putting them into action in running. And strength training seems to be the most misunderstood. People realize, hey, I should be more flexible. Right.
You're like, oh, maybe I should do some crunches and stuff.
Well, even think
Washboard
about it.
abs.
Like, ask yourself this question right now. Like, how do you define strength to you? And like, what does it mean? Because it's a word that we throw a lot of times.
Yep.
Like we'd say, oh man, my teammate is so strong up the hills.
Yeah.
Right? Or man, they were so strong like at Boston Marathon when it was like raining and they like didn't give up, right? So there's almost like a mental grittiness component. Or they're so strong they can do like hella weight on the leg press machine, you know?
But, I think that those two versions of that word are used differently. Like people say, hey, he was really strong on the hills. They're not thinking about that as being a strength component.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, they are using it differently.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my point there, that strength training is a word that we use a lot, but it's become so open-ended. We don't know specifically what we're talking about. Is it a focus thing? Is it a mental toughness and a grittiness thing?
Yeah.
Is it an output in the body? Or does it have something to do related to running? And I feel like we have talked about this a lot over the years, building the run experience. And one of the things that we've really thought about in terms of defining strength training for running is your body's ability to look as good in the last mile as it does in the first. For the form to be consistent all the way through, regardless of speed. Because speed has a physiological component, an aerobic component. Did you do the work? I could still be strong without necessarily breaking down. But that's kind of the thing. How do we basically run without breaking down, without deteriorating?
Right.
And
I was just actually watching a video of not Ryan Hall, Galen Rupp.
Yep.
Finishing one of his races, and it was a marathon. He was dog tired. He threw up at the end. It's a very famous video. I'm sure you've seen it. I think it was in Spain or something like that. Anyhow, he was totally done at the end of the race, but the last like 100, 150 meters where they're showing a close-up of him, I mean, yeah, he looks tired, but the difference between him at the finish line, like his form is still together. He's still working hard.
Yeah.
And it's pretty impressive. He's been at that pace now for 2 hours.
It's incredible.
Just grinding it out, and he still looks strong at the finish, and that is really the hallmark of a professional athlete.
Now, this is what I've been more fascinated with, guys, recently when it comes to looking at those types of performances. Strength, when we think of strength and we're really thinking about movement, my ability to move really, really well, movement has this strong neuromuscular component to it. My ability to have coordination, and coordination, a huge part of that is my brain talking to my body. It's almost like you're playing the guitar, and you've learned over the years. In the beginning, your fingers were butterfingers, very clumsy, but over time, you have started to improve that. And the way it was almost explained to me the other day was like in the beginning when my brain is learning how to do a new task for the first time, there's this like very weak neural connection, but the more I do that connection gets stronger and it gets broader and it gets deeper. So it's almost like grooves in the snow. In the beginning, like it might be shallow, but the more I walk there, that path gets more and more established. And then all of a sudden, that is, in certain respects, the acquisition of a new skill.
And it's not, I mean, I find it in other modalities, like you're mentioning guitar, but it just, it's not just in the one thing that like, let's say you learn how to deadlift, right? Or you learn how to squat, or you learn how to play a certain chord on the guitar. Like for me, it's not just that one thing. It is, oh, look at this. I gotta get closer to the mic. It's not just that one thing. It is actually like kind of the breadth of stuff in that arena. So my hands just work a little bit better now, and I can play overall a little bit better because I worked on one thing. And similarly with weightlifting, or any type of strength training, especially when you think about the function. So like, okay, I learned how to press something up overhead, and all my types of presses, or even my handstands and all that sort of stuff, everything improves because I've learned the general, like, to take control over this musculature. And it's not even this motion, but more like the pathway of like, hey, my brain knows what to do with this part of my body better than it did before. Yeah.
And I think what's interesting, going back to the guitar analogy, guys, and I'm very specifically using the instrument because you're like, what do you mean you need to be strong as a guitar player? Like, well, in the beginning, I'm like learning how to do something. And at first, it's just really this brain connection. But there's that moment where you pick up a new skill, and this ties directly into running, where you're like, I got it for a little while, but then you fatigue really quickly.
Yep.
And then it falls apart, and you're like, I got to stop practicing. And it's kind of to your point where you said, hey, I can't just practice to failure every time if I'm shooting hoops, right? I need to sort of stop on a good note, and I'll pick up where I left off. So then all of a sudden, it does become a little physiological. There is a point where it's like, you know what, I actually developed some endurance in my fingers, where all of a sudden I can play for longer. And then you are some jam band musician who's like playing for like 6 hours on the guitar and not getting tired. So there is that component of things, but it starts on that neural sense. Hey, do I have the skill set to perform this?
Right.
Can I do this for short periods of time where it's a combination of mental focus, then I'm starting to tap into the physiology, and then can I extend that out for longer periods? And I feel like 100%. That's like a really good way to think about my ability to quote unquote be strong for running.
I agree, 100%. Look at all these questions.
Look at all these things. I'm getting to a lot of good stuff. So just to chime in, because I got more to say on the matter, as you guys can imagine. Let's see here. Sam said, adaptation is worthy. Demands from other modalities is great for upward personal performance. Plus, I dig not being in specificity drudge. I think there is something nice about honoring the athlete that is going to lift the runner. And I always get this question like, oh, I want the running specific squat or the running specific lunge. Depending on who you are and how long we've known each other in the mood I'm in, I'll be like, sure, let's do it this and this and this way. But in my brain, you know, if you are a ski racer or you are a soccer player or you're anything, guess what? I'm going to teach you the squat the same damn way, because guess what? You have the same ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, breathing apparatus as every other human on the planet. So there is this general template of like how we all move. To your point, hey, if I press overhead, this helps with my handstands, this helps with other things like that.
So that's an interesting way of putting it. The running specific, because if you look at different athletes, they are shaped different ways, right? A swimmer looks different than a runner because of the types of muscles they're using and because of the flexibility. And so, you know, another way to look at it could be that like your body is adapting to the physical movement that you are putting it through.
That is 100% true. And the second half of me saying, hey, you know, I'm not going to teach you a squat a different way, is that I'm going to relate it to you differently. I'm going to talk a squat and relate it in a way that makes sense to your running. I'm going to talk about a lunge in the way that makes sense for you for skiing. And then the programming and the range of motion might change a little bit based on the demands of what you need to do. And I feel like that is the balance.
And a lot of ways, you know, you might think of it is if running is your main activity and you're doing it 5-6 times a week and you're getting into the gym a couple times, when you are doing squats, that is the runner's squat, because you are taking into the gym all of your musculature and all the neural pathways from your brain to your muscles are ones that are conditioned for that movement, conditioned for running. Your mobility is going to be, I would say, running specific, but I would say probably hindered by the fact that you're a runner. I mean, a lot of us as runners, like, we fight a lot of our mobility, especially in lower legs.
Yeah.
So something that I struggle with. But, you know, the idea of a running specific exercise, but by the very nature of the fact that you are strength training and then taking that back onto the road, it becomes running specific because that is how you're utilizing it.
It does. And the big key thing there for me, guys, the real win is that I have to mentally think about it, because if I'm thinking about it, I'm starting to draw those connections in a little bit of a better way.
Yep.
If I'm checked out and I'm just doing some leg press movement and then I'm just going running, it's not going to connect instantly. So that's one of the traps that I see people fall into.
I had an interesting moment a couple weeks ago, and I was going through one of these mobility, I want to say course, but it's not a course. It's just a progression. And it was for like kind of the adductors and middle splits, although I don't think I'm ever going to get to the middle
and your
splits.
adductors are like part of like your kind of like your inner thigh and your groin.
Yeah. And this is actually the area that I injured, you know, when we tell about our origin story of me being injured, it was my adductor. And so it's an area that I know I'm very not flexible. And so let's just imagine these are my two legs. And so I'm doing this kind of like a frog squat on the bottom where my knees are on the, and I'm
oh, yep.
Yeah, I'm in like a frog position trying
Don't sneeze.
Yeah, what's that?
Don't sneeze when you're in that position.
And so, you know, one of the things that the loaded type of stretching is to press in.
Yeah.
Press your knees into the ground and then relax and try to get deeper. Now, I am not super flexible in my adductor like middle splits at all. But one of the interesting things that was part of the progression was not only to press your knees in, but then they had a second section where the second set, instead of pressing your knees in, you actually squeeze your butt and try to lift your legs up.
Yep.
Which obviously they don't even come up. But just that mental, and I basically was engaging my glutes, it works really well.
So what's interesting is, did you get any sense or explanation of why you were doing those things?
It has something to do with, utilizing the anterior set of muscles.
Yeah.
Basically telling your body, instead of saying, hey, I just want you to stretch this muscle, you fire the opposing muscle on the opposite side. And so instead of like squeezing in, you basically try to like almost like butterfly your legs up like this way and try to lift them. And
Let's get you a little bit. Let's get you a little bit more.
There you go. Put me in full focus.
There we go.
And because of that, there is a relaxation effect of the kind of counter muscle.
So the way that I like to think about it, and this gets into why we want to do full body movements for strength training, because I'm going to talk about what we call the nook and cranny stuff around here, the things that activate certain muscles and get you firing. I want not only as much range as I can get out of my body, but I want control of that range. Right. Because when I go to areas where my body hasn't been before, right at the edges, that deepest part of the squat, that furthest overhead position, my body's like, ooh, I don't know what's happening here.
Yep.
And protectively, it starts to shut down.
Yep.
And sometimes when you're doing a stretch like that, the shutdown is like the muscles are like, ooh, I don't want to extend too far and rip out, so I'm going to tighten up.
Right.
So by you doing that little muscular activation, you're saying, you're like, hey, I got this, I'm safe here, I've got control here.
Right.
And your body's like, okay, I'm going to relax.
That's interesting.
Which is interesting because, raise your digital hands if you have tight hamstrings, but you stretch your hamstrings all the time and they're still tight. Right? If you're in that position, you're like, man, I'm stretching and wailing on my hamstrings, but they're still fucking tight all the time.
Yeah.
That's showing to me that you are not demonstrating to your body that you have control of those ranges. So by learning how to go through different positions, and this is why things like squatting and deadlifting are so important and why we feature them in our running strength program.
Right.
Shameless plug.
So shameless. Join the running strength program today.
Hey,
you'll see his face and Kirk's face every other day.
Yeah, we have so much free shit online. We can put that out there. We've got a great running deadlift video for running that Elizabeth and I did together. It might be a month or two old, but definitely check that out if you want to learn more.
If Elizabeth can deadlift, so can you.
Yes,
she would say that. I'm not making fun of her.
That's totally
exactly what
fair.
she says.
Totally fair. Well, anyway, let's chime in and take a quick little break. If you guys are just joining us, we are talking about strength training today, different types of strength training, and what type you should be doing for the running you want. We want to answer your questions. We've been going on for a little while, so if you guys want to pop your questions in about strength, we can start to address that. And of course, what are we giving away, Craig?
Today, we're giving away for you 2 of our strength training programs. Just click the link below. I can't do this anymore.
I know.
Just click the link below. My Vanna White voice is or what was his name? Pat something?
I don't know.
The
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune. Anyhow, it's free. You don't have to be on TV. You don't have to be on YouTube. Just click the link below, and you'll get access to a bunch of our resources online, and you'll get entered to win.
Yeah. We're also doing a live challenge for our strength program that kicks off next week. So check out the giveaway. But if you want to get in that live challenge, you can just get right in there real quick.
Yep. And just if you're not watching this live, for all of you guys who are not watching this live, you can still enter because we are going to do this drawing for the strength training program actually next week. And if you want to enter the one that we're going to do at the end of this show, you can just be sneaky and go get last week's episode, and you'll be entered for that. So cool. We had some. So I saw that.
We got some great things. We got some people raising their digital hands, joining us like those tight hamstrings.
I didn't know you could do that. I thought you just used to say that.
I was kind of saying that, but they're actually doing it too with the emojis. I totally love it.
Nice. Lee was saying that not all of her strength training is running specific. I saw that coming up. But yeah, because I actually saw her in a boxing class. She posted about that. So it's nice to actually change things up. I think that I have really started to. I've really started to fall in love with running again. I think like Well, I had a competitive running career, right, high school and college, and then post college, I was still running like marathons and like training and long runs on the weekend. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
And then when I got injured, I had to unlearn that part of my life because I was like so dependent on it.
Yeah.
And now that running is part of my work with you, it's kind of taken on a new form, which I love. But I had gotten away from like, hey, like just going out and putting in like 8 miles in the morning is such a joy to me, and it's been great to kind of get back into it. I feel like
no, I've been enjoying it too. I've been getting back
more. Last year when I was training very specifically for like half marathon, then another half marathon, then a 50K, and I was like focused on one specific thing. And like for me, it is such a joy. I feel like I've like fallen off the bandwagon, and like it's like an addict getting back into the sauce.
Yeah, getting back in.
I feel so viscerally like the almost addiction towards putting mileage in the morning, specifically these morning runs. Like, where I'm like, oh, like I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going on like my normal run, then Tuesday, Thursday stretch, and then go on a shorter run.
Yeah.
And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I get up and I'm like, yes, it's a running
amped.
day.
Yeah.
I'm like, sweet, head out the door.
I know, it's feeling really good right now for me
great.
too. So let's talk about Daz's question. Daz Johnstone, he asks, hey guys, I've started carrying my long run vest, hydration ladder packed with 1.5 liters of water, and packed the pockets full and padded out during normal training runs, so like our hill sessions and speed work. What benefits should I feel, if any? Am I right in thinking it'll improve strength? So I want to separate a few of these things. I would say that, running with a weighted anything is going to be more from a specificity standpoint. I have to get ready. It's going to help you specifically get ready for running with weighted stuff.
Yeah.
So let's say you are in the military and you have to get ready to ruck with a heavy bag. Well, do some rucking.
Is that a verb?
Ruck is a word. I think so.
I think you made that up.
I did not make. Maybe I made it up. Who knows?
I heard a rucksack.
Ruck. Yeah, go ruck. Ruck challenge. Do you not hear about these things, Craig?
No, I don't know about this.
Tell me more about this thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you are someone who's getting ready for a 50 or 100-mile race where you're going to be running with a lot of gear or doing something unsupported, totally makes sense to, spend some time there. I would probably hesitate to do all your runs in it, and especially your speed work and other stuff where we actually don't want to be restrained. We want to be fast.
Yep.
So like I would think about it that way. And if you want to get strong, this is where, you actually want to be not necessarily in the gym, but doing full body movements, squats, lunges, step ups, barbell stuff. That's actually going to develop that force production quality of things where you're actually really overloaded way more than maybe this 15-pound pack.
I also think of strength training as a time when you're focused on extending like where you can work in terms of range of motion. You're going slightly deeper into different movements. Whereas when you are running with a lot of weight, which sometimes you have to do, which is totally fine. But if you're running as a lot of weight in order to train for just a normal run, it does affect your biomechanics, right?
Yeah.
Like when you strap a bunch of weight on your chest, your back, wherever it is, it's going to change things slightly. If only where your center of mass is, but realistically, just because you have that extra force, your cadence might slow down. You might land slightly differently. You might put different stress on your body.
That's a really good point. So I'd be very careful there. I would say if you're the trail runner, ease into it. It makes sense to me. If I'm all of a sudden loading up a bunch of stuff on my back, like go very short distances, extremely short. Just to your point, because if you're this runner who's used to a certain way and all of a sudden you make this big change, that's a lot of load on those joints.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the wrestlers used to run with with sweatshirts on and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to make you a faster runner, but it will make you more tolerant of running with hot stuff on.
Now, one of our original videos, do you remember this? We did a video on farmer's carries.
Oh yeah.
So guys, farmer's carries is great. It is, you could almost think about carrying 2 heavy suitcases in the airport if you didn't have roller bags. But you have 2 heavy things in your hands, could be a pair of dumbbells or kettlebells, and you are just walking with it. And it builds grip strength, forearm strength. And for running, what I love that it does is it really gets us focused in on posture. I have to kind of pull those shoulders back. My hips have to be really centered underneath me, and just everything is turned on. And it's just an easy thing.
You're not doing an entire, like, you're not going for a hike.
No,
right?
You're doing
it's
50
short,
meters to 100 meters of farmer's carry, and you're stopping and resting, and you're
focus on
that again.
You focus on your positioning, and then you move on to something else.
That's a nice way to develop that kind of posture-specific running strength for sure.
Okay, so I think we should do a sidebar like we did with running injuries in the last couple of times, where the original question here was, what are the best types of strength training for runners? So you give like a 2-minute answer. I'm going to give a 2-minute answer.
Okay.
You go first, and I copy you.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I think about my overall strength training like I think about my nutrition. Like every human being on the planet, I need my macronutrients, my protein, carbohydrate, my fat. I need my micronutrients, which we'll just say is a lot of color on the plate, fruits and vegetables, everything. Depending on the type of athlete I'm trying to be, these quantities are going to shift. I need to cover all my bases to survive as a human, and then I need to specialize those quantities to what I'm trying to do. So for example, as I'm marathoning, maybe my carbohydrate is going to increase, all depending on certain times. Maybe I'm going to need a little bit more protein or whatever. Strength training, same thing. I need full body movements that basically improves range of motion in my hips, shoulders, knees, ankles, etc. I need to load that up at times. I need to do some things that not only improve force production, which is heavier stuff where I'm moving slowly, grinding through, but I need power as well. And a power production is moving quick, moving explosively. That would be a kettlebell swing or say. If I did only those two things, I would be good, but I have neglected maybe my balance, my stability, my ability to have that like finer motor technique pattern. And this is where, say, Pilates type work starts to come in, or some of those exercises you may or may have not have done if you've been injured and you're in physical therapy. Doing side steps with a band to get your glute meats firing, doing a little like quadruped, opposite arm, opposite leg, spending some time hopping around on one foot, doing some calf raises, strengthening the specific areas, and honoring both. And then basically, depending on the time of year that I'm training, one is going to get bigger and the other is going to get bigger. So further away from my race, the big picture stuff, force production, power output, that's going to take the bigger part. All the little motor control nook and cranny is going to get smaller. As I get closer to my race, this is going to shift. Where all of a sudden I'm just going to touch base and honor this a little bit. I'm going to spend much more time on strength, stability, and core work just to support my running. I'm not trying to build anymore physically. I'm just trying to hold my body together so I can execute my run workouts.
Amazing.
And then I would do that probably two to three sessions a week.
Okay. I learned most of the stuff that he just said from him, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I'll tell you some of the things that I don't do anymore. And it's not to say that these are bad. It just doesn't serve my purpose right now. So I remember going into the Y as a high school runner and collegiate runner.
Oh, yes. This is great. Sharing, how you thought about this before and maybe how that's changed.
And it went from, so when I was in high school, I used to just do tons of push-ups with pretty poor form, but just try to increase my number over time. Okay, I'm going to do 100 push-ups every night. I'm going to do 100 pull-ups every night.
And where did that come from? Like, did you have like other runner friends do that, or was that because you played basketball? Was that more of a popular basketball thing?
It wasn't well, I'll tell you what was a basketball thing was I used to do calf raises because I thought I wanted to be able to jump higher, which those do not correlate at all, pretty much. And then I would do like chair sits where you sit against the wall.
Is that why you have such sexy calves?
Oh, totally. And then chair sits were like a thing we did in basketball practice, so that did come from there. And it was just a painful thing, so I figured, hey,
you mean like hurts. A wall sit?
Yeah,
like
in a chair.
You're like in an invisible chair.
An invisible chair. So you're pressing against the wall, and it would burn like hell. And I would get better. I could do 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, and I could sit there, and it would. I'll tell you the thing that it definitely built my resolve. Like I could sit there and tolerate pain for 6 minutes in a chair sit. As a high schooler, that really did build something. Yeah. I don't think it helped my running one iota. Yeah. I don't think that it helped my basketball game at all. But at that point in time, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any coaching. So I would just go through this, and I used to do it every single night. Every single night I go through this. And so when I progressed, I would go to the gym and I would find, oh, I have all these weight machines. So I'm going to do, the bench press, and then I'll do the pull-ups on the pull-up machine. And I would go through every machine, because obviously if I hit every machine, I'd hit my whole body and it'd be great.
Yeah.
And I get good sweat working out. I feel tired. I feel sore. Great. Also,
was
that clear?
Was that recommended by just kind of your own volition?
This is Coach Craig coaching himself when he was 17, 18, 19.
Craig's Crazy Gym.
Yes. And honestly, at our when I was running Division 1, we used to do a circuit that was a little bit more running specific. I mean, we would do things like movements on the ground, but we also did like rope climbs and stuff like that were
That's
not
kind of cool.
Yeah, but it was not a well-formed, like, we didn't have strength training as a rigorous part of our schedule the way that it should have been. And it wasn't definitely building us away from injury the way that it could have been.
Yeah.
And so
but what's interesting about that is that you had access to really good trainers at a D1 university.
Yep.
So that wasn't a random program. That was put together by someone who knows what they're doing.
Knows what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't know what he was doing, but like, strength training was not part of the repertoire that he knew. I mean, we had enough athletes. You also have to think, like, we had some pretty elite athletes, and so we had people who could handle really high mileage, and just genetically they were able to do it for that period of time. Now, a lot of them don't run anymore, but could do it, and it made them better runners. So they just focus all their time there. And there were some of us that needed a lot more help, myself being one of them, in order to not get stress fractures and we weren't necessarily being served in the way I think we could have in retrospect. But I'll tell you, like, now when I think about getting onto a machine, like, you couldn't pay me to get onto one of those weightlifting machines at the Y or at 24 Hour Fitness, because I don't want to just, if I wanted to, like, build my body, that might be an effective way of building certain muscles, but I want something that is functioning in my real life.
Well, getting back to what we were earlier saying, and guys, if you do those machines, it's something that was originally designed to remove as much skill and potential danger out of the movement as possible.
Yeah, because
it locks you in, so you just do this. And
the gyms don't have insurance.
And we started to think a little bit about strength from a bodybuilding standpoint.
Right.
We have a huge influence, thanks to really Arnold Schwarzenegger, actually, for popularizing bodybuilding to the point that, like, in the 80s and early 90s, that was the strength we see. And that's why we still think about strength from a muscle standpoint. This muscle is weak. Really? How do you know? Right? Like, how do we know our glute medius is or isn't firing? Or our...
whether it's a neurological thing, and the muscle's there and you're just not able to access it, or whether it's actually just not there or not built, or whether that's the muscle that you should be, targeting.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting when we start thinking about movements from a different way, how we improve that. And I want to hit two questions. The one I want to talk about in a second is, does yoga count as strength training? I'm a beginner. I want to get into that a little bit because I've messed around with yoga, which I definitely enjoy. And then GDK Mouse says, what about strength training the hip flexors? So this is interesting. Now, a lot of times, my hip flexors, we don't really have a band in here.
We do.
Do we?
Go ahead.
When we're talking about strengthening the hip flexors, a lot of times we're trying to prevent that feeling of our hip flexors cramping up or getting really, really tired at the end of a run. And I think for any of you guys who've done a long run, a marathon, anything like that, you can start to feel your hip flexors start to go.
Yep.
So we can say, okay, I can strengthen my hip flexors and improve it. And you could say, sure. But we also need to figure out why the hip flexors are feeling that way in the first place. And it's important to understand that my hip flexors basically are this. As my leg swings back, hold on, I'm doing this, guys. We're going down so you guys can see. As my legs swing back,
that's Nora. Can you see Nora?
My hip flexors really act like this rubber band. They swing back here, and then this leg snaps on forward. And this is why posture and hip position is so important, because when I squeeze my butt, push my hips forward, this loads this rubber band up. But what happens when we get tired? We start to lose our posture and position. I might need to go up a little bit more. And when I lose my posture and position, my hips basically tilt forward, and that rubber band, it goes slack. So before it was tight, then all of a sudden it goes here, and then all of a sudden I'm having to manually lift my knees up with my hip flexors. So this muscle that was supposed to act more like a rubber band is now having to do a lot of manual labor, and that's why it's starting to fatigue out.
Wait, so what is actually making you use it as actually a source of strength as opposed to a stability thing?
So we're going down again, guys.
Oh, here we go. It was the going down that distracted me in the first place.
Going down in the first place. There we go. So as I'm here, right, when my hips are in a good position, we talk about leading with the hips, this loads this band up here. So all of a sudden, when this leg goes back, my hip is forward, and I get that little natural swing. That's why when people see that leg swing up naturally, just like that, my hip flexor loads up, big over band, this leg naturally swings through, and we all do that. But what happens when I get tired is that all of a sudden I've lost my position a little bit, right? My hips have come forward. This band goes slack. I don't get as good hip extension, and then I have to manually drag my leg forward and through.
Oh,
so that's where that thing starts to fatigue. That's at least the way that I think about it. So when we talk about strengthening our hip flexors, it is a multifactorial thing. Yes, I need to improve that a little bit, but I also need to really tie that in with my big picture running position and posture. And if I lose that, no amount of specific strength training is going to help me.
Gotcha. Interesting. Huh.
Carla says, I'm late, but I'm here. Oh my God.
Carla, thank you for signing on.
Yeah.
Don't worry, this whole thing's recorded. You can go back and get the rest of it. Don't forget to hit the Gleam link below because we're doing the
drawing. Oh my goodness, time is flying
in
today.
Just 10 minutes. All right, I think we got so many questions here. Let's have some questions.
Very quickly.
Rapid fire round.
Rapid fire on strength training. I'm new to running. Madam Traffic Jam said, I'm absolutely beginner to. Does yoga count as strength training? I think it gets you...
varied. It depends on what type of yoga you're doing.
It depends on the type of yoga. I think it provides some good coordination, some good balance, and it gets you into your body a little bit. So from a body weight strength, we're getting something. Most yoga practices aren't designed to have you build a ton of repetitions. So it might get you into a chaturanga, which might be a push-up, but you're also not doing 50 chaturangas in a class.
And you might also, it builds a lot of like balance and stability, which is part of weight training, and definitely is very good at that. But I think that the two can complement each other.
So back to the nutrition analogy, it provides a lot of really good micronutrients, maybe some part of your plate, but it doesn't cover everything. Let me see here.
And even actually, people who are really into different types of like advanced poses for yoga do strength training. I mean, and some of it is body weight strength training, but they still do very specific strength training because holding some of those poses is very difficult.
Totally. Sam asks, hi chaps, if we're doing, I love it when people call us chaps, because I also know they're from across the pond. I can tell.
I'm a chap.
I said,
scroll up.
I just lost it. There we go. If we're doing loaded full body movements, e.g. squats and deads, how many sets and reps are we talking about? If I'm new and I'm getting into this, I'm going to be targeting like 25 to 30 reps.
Total?
Yes. At a medium feeling weight. It's enough weight on the bar where I'm paying attention, things are loaded, maybe I'm slowing down a little bit, but I'm not going to failure at the reps. And if we're thinking that in terms of percentage of what you could do, you're kind of ballparking that 50% to 60% of capacity. As you get more experience in extreme, you can push those percentages up to 70+%. And then if you're doing 30 reps at 70 to 80%, that's really hard. That's really, really hard. I think
if you were to, for example, try out a strength program, all of this knowledge is built into it.
It's all built in. Oh, that's good. I like that. I think there is value in doing lower volume, higher percentage stuff. But let that come. Let that come with more experience. Maybe do that under a little bit of supervision where you are doing, reps of 3 and below, and you're only doing 15 total reps. Like 5 sets of 3 deadlifts at 80-85+%.
But an enormous amount of stimulus.
Enormous amount of stimulus, longer rest, but again, your shit's got to be dialed for that. So that would be the way I think about it. Now, if you wanted to do a maintenance mode where you just wanted to keep a little bit of strength as you get closer to your marathon, I would stay at the lighter percentages, and instead of doing 30 reps, you're only going to do 15 to 20 reps. And that's just a way where you just kind of keep the systems turned on, these muscles engaged, but you're not trying to necessarily build anything more there. Let's see here. Thomas asks, I've done a couple of ultra road runs and doing a 90K run in June. Would it be wise to do a 100-mile trail run in September? How would one do that, switch from road to trail? Ew. Have you ever done any long, like ultra run on the road?
No, I've only done marathon length on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the transition, I mean, what I will definitely tell you as somebody who is a road runner primarily, would you call yourself primarily a trail or road runner? I think now you seem mostly like a trail guy.
Yeah, I've dabbled, you know, but like last couple of years was more trail. I'm running more road now consistently than I have in a long time, but we've been the opposite. I think the last couple of years I've done a lot more trail and you've done a lot more road.
I am definitely more comfortable on the road, and there is nothing like a good hard trail race to give you respect for how different those sports are.
Yeah.
Not only from a if every aspect, you know, whether it's the variance in pace, so mentally you can't stay in the same place on a trail race. I cannot stay in the same mental framework for an entire race as I can on the road, where I can zone out and focus on my form, focus on my breathing, like with the varied terrain, and then muscularly, you know, whether it's a balance thing, whether it's small micro adjustments of your foot, so you get feet fatigue. Whether you're going downhill and you get like definitely like DOMs later on because of you've been just pounding your quads. There's so many differences, and so you know, distance is not just distance. Distance has a lot to do with the terrain as well, and especially as you get to these longer distances, the amount of difference between a 50-mile road race versus a 50-mile trail run, you know. I
think sticking with today's theme about strength training, you are going to get some strength in your ability to hold good positions for longer periods of times through specific adaptation to what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So from a trail running perspective, when I started running more roads, I was like, man, this unforgiving flat surface is going forever. Like, where are my hills to break things up? Like, I was so used to the terrain constantly changing that it took me a while to get used to just doing one thing for a really long period of time. So the idea of doing, like, going from like a trail ultra, like running 35 miles on trails to running 35 miles flat pavement is terrifying to me because I have nowhere to hide on all that flat surface.
Oh man, I could not be happier on a flat surface.
Yeah. So there's adaptations that go either way. You have the engine, so you won't necessarily need to kill yourself, but a few things to keep in mind when you start going to trail long stuff, think less about miles and more about time out there on the road.
I'll do it on a track if I could.
Because 20 miles, you know, with 3,000 feet of climbing is a lot different than not. Be patient. Let yourself walk on the uphills. I know it's an insult for most runners to start walking on the hills. They feel like they're waving the flag. But with like ultra trail running, it is a strategic choice. And you also realize that some people are really good at power walking up hills.
Yeah,
I suck at it.
And
it's really hard.
People walk faster than I run up the hills.
I know, it's crazy.
So much energy, it's crazy.
That's good. So I feel like we hit that one. Let's see here. A few more questions here, guys, before we do our giveaway from last week, which is our TRE running hat. We're super excited about that. Jeffrey says Iyengar yoga is good for strength.
Yep. I don't know all the types of yoga, but I know that I've been in classes where they're very strength focused, and then been other ones where they're much more flexible. Mobility and balance.
Jeff says, I'm with you, Carla. I've been trying to change my posture and running style. Leading with the hips is a little confusing to me because we have a lot of videos on this. So if you look up on our channel, we really talk about our body's ability to go from a neutral to slight extension. And that's what I talk about by putting our hips, we're just leading a little bit. It's very, very subtle, and that's the game, right? We're not doing big changes. It's these little subtle things. You all do it naturally. I'm just drawing a little attention to that.
Yep.
Let's see here. Sam says, who knew a Bandit Nate would describe how well the hip flexor functions and why posture, being a lobster, is key. Let's see here. Jeff says, I need to find a way to video it myself, but not on a treadmill. I think my stride and posture are different on road, trail versus treadmill. It is going to change a little bit. You know, you could have someone, capture you going through. We've got these great stable cams that are awesome, but that requires another person and a stable camera. So that's always tough. few more questions, guys, before we go. We got to start to pull up that Gleam link. Tim spells, can you do strength training every day if you vary the muscle groups, e.g., like without actual weights, but strength in the pool or strength exercises and stretching? I'm thinking more low impact. I think you can. You know, some people think about dividing strength in different ways. Sometimes there's a leg day or an arm day. But again, that has to do with very broken down specific movements, like a bicep curl, a tricep extension, a knee extension, a leg extension. And that's really coming from that bodybuilding background. I think that what I've learned from the CrossFit world is just by varying up. You could squat every single day, you know, and you could vary up the type of squatting that you're doing, and that is enough, you know, change of load and stimulus. So some days going a little heavier, some days going a little bit lighter, some days working on a little bit of a more of a power-based thing is helpful.
All right, you got to load it up. You do the drawing.
Let's do it. Let's pull out the drawing from last week. So it is the end of the hour, which means we're giving away, we're figuring out who are the lucky winners from last week's TRE hat and membership giveaway.
Let's do it.
Beautiful hat. Does not come with a trip to the Golden Gate, but you know. Drawing the winners right now.
But
drum roll.
you could join us for the SF Marathon. We'll be doing events here if you'd like to join the SF Marathon. I think registration is still open.
All right, we have Jessica Moulton.
All right, Jessica.
You are the winner. And Tone, hey,
oh,
Tone,
yeah, nice.
You are the winner as well. Congratulations on
Massachusetts and Virginia.
Massachusetts and Virginia. Congratulations on your free hat and your membership. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to email you, and you need to email me back because I'm going to go to Italy very soon.
Oh, that's right.
If you don't email me back, I can't send you that stuff. You'll have to wait a couple weeks. But if you can email me by today, I can actually get that stuff sent out to you.
And all other future prizes will be mailed out when he returns. Because I don't know how to do that.
He willfully does not know how to do that is really what that means.
I have no idea.
He doesn't know how to send things in the mailbox. Well, anyway, guys, episode number 50. We really couldn't be happier. I think we started this as Craig's idea, as something to just mess around and experiment with. And it's been super fun to connect with you guys every single week. It's a highlight for both of us. We love talking to you. We love that you guys all talk to and know each other now. A fun little online running community.
I love the fact, I mean, now, like, when we're traveling, it goes on the road with us. You know, you can pop in from Italy. Be like, hey, I'm in Italy.
I know. Maybe I'll do that. I'll have to send you guys a little video and a little shout out.
Sounds good. Guys, thank you so much for joining in. I'm going to put a link here to our... Do that. That is our training plans. If you want to check out our training plans, you can get the strength program as part of the training club or separately.
Yep.
And yeah, and I am about to hit the outro because that's how fancy we are these days.
That's how fancy we are.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, guys. See you next time.